Chapter 1319, 9 Sacred Thunders and 3 Tests All at Once. Chapter 1319, 9 Sacred Thunders and 3 Tests All at Once. Boom! The 9th sacred thunder, which had drawn everyone's attention, finally stopped simmering. The last sacred thunder could determine whether Jian Wushuang could survive. It gradually revealed its formidable force. At that moment, the dark clouds separated from each other, from which 2 flashes of dazzling light. One flash of light was endlessly dark and the other deep green. 2 sacred thunders. These 2 flashes of light staggered all of the talents who were watching. They knew there were 2 sacred thunders. And the endless dark one was the most powerful dark sacred thunder, and carried an annihilatory power. And the deep green one was an entire fire test sacred thunder. A deep green fire test. They arrive at the same time. Astonishing. Everyone was speechless. Generally speaking, 3 kinds of God tests came separately. Occasionally, the thunder test came with a trace of fire, only a small trace. But now, an entire dark sacred thunder, and a fire test sacred thunder came simultaneously. Worse still, Jian Wushuang felt a sense of anxiety. The anxiety came without a sign. Actually, he had been able to stay calm in any dangerous situation, after he had tackled so many challenges. Even at the brink of death, he had always been calm without even a trace of anxiety. But now, he was upset, and this irritability intensified, directly affecting his emotions, and even his control of his own power. At this moment, Jian Wushuang found it extremely difficult to control his own spiritual power. Shit! He bit his lips violently, causing a great pain that made his mind clearer. However, his face became completely distorted and horrible. The eyes were also full of unprecedented aggression and madness. A dark fog containing a mysterious power slowly rose in his body, triggering his irritation and conquering him. Bystanders outside the tribulation-passing pinnacle didn't know what was happening. What is he doing? What on earth is going on? What is happening? Many practitioners who were watching felt confused. Only a few distinguished gods, including the Master of Diyu Palace and Lord Wuxia, knew what happened. They were shocked. It's a mind test. Really? Even Master of the Diyu Palace, the supreme god in the Diyu universe, felt amazed and exclaimed. A mind test? Everyone was shocked when they knew what was exactly happening. It was true. A mind test. The most difficult one among the 3 kinds of God tests, and also the one that had been rarely seen. It was said that only a vicious sinner taking numerous lives would meet with the mind test, with a certain yet low possibility. Within the long history of the Diyu universe, the mind test had never happened at all. That was why Master of the Diyu Palace didn't know much about it, and had only mentioned a little information in classes. And now Jian Wushuang was receiving the mind test. Furthermore, it came with the thunder test and the fire test. 3 kinds of tests came to the same person at the same time. How can it be possible? This is impossible. The usually indifferent and calm Lord Wuxia couldn't help crying out. Why is only the first part of the God test already so catastrophic? I have never heard about this. Under normal circumstances, no matter how a cultivator is genius or vicious, he will never meet with such horrible test. Unless Lord Wuxia figured out one possibility. More specifically, he was reminded of a legend. Unless Jian Wushuang is undergoing the so-called inverse cultivation test. Lord Wuxia felt staggered. Inverse cultivation test? Master of the Diyu Palace couldn't believe what he heard. Inverse cultivation test. The most horrible God test in the eternal chaotic world. Also the most unique one. And the God test for universe gods was the most deadly in the inverse cultivation test. Even though Master of the Diyu Palace and Lord Wuxia were experienced, they had just heard of inverse cultivation, but never seen it, let alone the inverse cultivation test. And now they realized that Jian Wushuang was receiving the inverse cultivation test. Only this could explain why the undergoing test was so horrible. Jian Wushuang was practicing inverse cultivation. Master of the Diyu Palace, and Lord Wucang clenched their hands excitedly. They were now sure of who Jian Wushuang was. Now on the peak of the tribulation passing pinnacle, the dark fog had already covered the whole body of Jian Wushuang, whose breath was getting more and more violent. "Oh!" he roared with a distorted face. He roared with an unprecedented determination. He didn't want to lose. He didn't want to end his cultivation journey right now. He didn't want to die. After all, there were still many things for him to accomplish. He hadn't met Shuang Heir. He hadn't known who his master was. He could not die. Chapter 1320, Alive or Dead? Chapter 1320, Alive or Dead? Outside the tribunal passing pinnacle, countless experts held their breath as they watched everything that was happening on the tribunal passing pinnacle. They could feel Jian Wushuang's rage clearly, and they could tell how tough the test was that Jian Wushuang was going through. But at that very moment, Jian Wushuang, who was mad, suddenly lifted his head and stared into the void before him with his bloodshot eyes. In those bloodshot eyes, they were covered in a murderous aura and madness. However, there was a stronger sense of determination. I, Jian Wushuang, cultivated till today. I have been following my conscience whenever I do anything. Although I have killed many, those who are killed deserved it. I never fail my conscience. I never fail anyone. Nor have I failed the way of heaven. Now you are trying to influence me with just the devil? Dream on. Jian Wushuang's shrill scream was heard across the universe. The very moment he shouted, he hammered his chest with his fist. Poof! Jian Wushuang spat a mouthful of blood, but it stimulated his consciousness with the sharp pain. In turn, it suppressed the devil in him that was growing, followed by Jian Wushuang's willpower. The star power that had regathered in his body for the past century suddenly erupted. The secret skill of Star Palace was suddenly carried out. At the same time, Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and a scroll appeared from nowhere. It was the Chaos Divine Treasure, Mountain River Map. Up! Jian Wushuang bellowed, and the power of Star suddenly erupted along with the remaining soul power in his body. Then, it flowed towards the Mountain River Map without holding back. Under the drive of the soul power, the Mountain River Map opened directly. The very next moment, Virum, the extreme power of the dark and light combined together flawlessly, and a swirling vortex of black and white appeared from nowhere. The swirling vortex immediately covered a range of hundreds of thousand miles the moment it appeared, and it ceaselessly grew larger in lightning speed, while Jian Wushuang was positioned right in the middle of the whirlpool. The grand formation of the enduring samsara. It was the most impressive technique of Master Xian Yi, Jian Wushuang's master. He forcefully refined the grand formation of the enduring samsara within the Mountain River Map. The formation refined and suddenly became a technique that the Mountain River Map that could use. Different from the 9-province seal, the grand formation of the enduring samsara could both attack and defend. Jian Wushuang could only put the technique to play when he disregarded the cost. In collaboration with the eruption of the secret skill of Star Palace, it became Jian Wushuang's strongest trump card. Then he used the trump card to resist the thunder test and fire test that descended from the sky. Come on! Jian Wushuang was persistent. His entire body and mind were drowning in the struggle of the mind test. In the outer world, the two lightning rods and the huge swirling vortex of black and white clashed before every cultivator's eyes. Boom! The explosion was heard across the universe. The scary whistle spread, and the experts surrounding Tribunal Passing Pinnacle felt a sharp pain in their eyes. Boundless dark lighting and emerald flame filled every corner of Tribunal Passing Pinnacle. Poof poof poof. The spine-chilling sight took place. The peak of Tribunal Passing Pinnacle, which was specially designated for undergoing God's test, started disappearing at a speed which one could see with naked eyes. Yes, disappear. From the top to the bottom, the entire peak was eaten up by the emerald flames mercilessly. While Jian Wushuang, who was on the peak, was naturally within the scope of the disaster. It only took a brief moment until everything slowed down. Everyone saw that the peak of Tribunal Passing Pinnacle had disappeared entirely. Not only the peak, but even half of the hillsides were also taken down. The only part remaining was the bottom half of the tribunal passing pinnacle. Silence. The entire universe was in dead silence. Everyone was shocked and was left speechless. The terrifying God's test, an unprecedented God's test, shocked everyone. Every expert from all over the world only came back to reality after a long pause. The moment they came back to reality, they immediately looked towards the tribunal passing pinnacle that was beyond recognition. Jian Wushuang? Where's Jian Wushuang? Everyone stared at the huge pit on tribunal passing pinnacle. The pit was so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. With their naked eyes, they couldn't see the bottom clearly. They could only rely on their own consciousness to feel. They tried to feel. No sound. No sound at all. Is he dead? Everyone became silent. They couldn't feel any movement on tribunal passing pinnacle. It meant that Jian Wushuang passed away. Sigh. The master of Scarlet Island sighed, but his emotion was extremely complicated. Those behind the master of Scarlet Island were universe gods from the Scarlet Island. They exchanged glances and shook their head. God's test was a situation which, out of 10, 1 would survive and 9 would be dead. Hence, they were mentally prepared beforehand. However, when Jian Wushuang revealed his impressive ability during the process of undergoing God's test, they were looking forward to Jian Wushuang passing through it. Because once he passed through, it represented the birth of a true expert. But in the end, he failed. Sigh. Universe God Jiuhai from Holy Prefecture let out a heavy breath. Luckily he failed in the end. Otherwise, Universe God Jiuhai exclaimed. He recalled the process of the God's test. And he who was a universe god in the second heaven was shocked too. He couldn't imagine what he would do if Jian Wushuang passes through the God's test. By then, would he still have the guts to look for Jian Wushuang to take revenge? Luckily Jian Wushuang failed. Hence, whatever it was, it naturally wouldn't happen. The master of Deyu Palace and Wu Tsang stood side by side in the void above. It's such a pity. The master of Deyu Palace let out a sigh. It's really a pity. Wu Tsang nodded solemnly. A true prodigy. There might not be anyone from Snow Dojo who could be compared favorably with him. If he were to pass through the inverse cultivation test, he was destined to become a real peak expert. He is definitely far beyond me, but he failed in the end. Of course, we can't blame him. The inverse cultivation test was really too scary. Thinking of the inverse cultivation test that Jian Wushuang had been through, Wu Tsang still felt astonished. The inverse cultivation test was a definite nightmare. Everyone sighed. Everyone sighed with respect. More so that everyone thought it was regrettable for Jian Wushuang. At the depth of the pit, King of Venomous Worms stared at tribunal passing pinnacle. Jian Wushuang. No way, it's impossible. If you were to really be dead, I, as your parasite, should definitely feel something. But I don't feel anything. We still maintain a string of connection. It means that you aren't dead. King of Venomous King was emotional, and his mind and body were trembling. He let out his sensing power, and tried his best to look for Jian Wushuang's whereabouts. In a brief moment, the King of Venomous Worms felt an extremely weak aura that might vanish into thin air at any time in the deepest part of the huge pit on tribunal passing pinnacle. Chapter 1321, The Sacred Lights Came. Chapter 1321, The Sacred Lights Came. He is here. King of Venomous Worms went wild with joy. Although King of Venomous Worms hadn't recovered his power to 100%, his power to recover and detect was still incomparable. Even universe gods in the third heaven didn't have the power to detect as well as him. Therefore, when everyone else believed that Jian Wushuang had died, King of Venomous Worms could detect his breath. Jian Wushuang was still breathing. No matter how weak the breath was, he was still alive. Aha, you are still alive. King of Venomous Worms was extremely happy, but he didn't rush to help Jian Wushuang recover. Because he knew that Jian Wushuang was able to recover himself. King of Venomous Worms looked at the sky. I guess the sacred light is coming. However, the huge, dark cloud was still staying in the heavens, showing no signs of dissipating. Why is that? Why don't the clouds dissipate? Cultivators outside the tribulation passing pinnacle felt something unexpected. Under normal circumstances, the thunderclouds would dissipate after the cultivators died in the God test. Just like the situation where Dongmin Universe God died in the God test. But now the clouds were still there, while others could feel the breath of Jian Wushuang. Maybe Jian Wushuang was still alive. A universe God guessed, surprising others around him. Didn't he die? But if he didn't die, why can't others feel his breath? Boom! At the moment, a huge thundercloud split. What? Everyone looked up to the heavens, seeing and sensing a golden light from the splitting thunderclouds. A golden light as bright as the sun, providing everyone comfortable warmth. The sacred light? Everyone's eyes were wide open. The sacred light would come and shine on the cultivators who passed the God test, helping them recover and transform their power. Everyone was familiar with that light. And now it had arrived. Jian Wushuang is still alive. Master of the Scarlet Island exclaimed. Many other universe gods also raised their heads. How can it be possible? Universe god Jiuhai felt nervous. Even Master of the Diyu Palace and Lord Wucong also felt surprised by the light. They had just thought that Jian Wushuang had died. But now, the light was coming. And he was still alive. Boom! 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 The heaven roared 9 times as the golden light in the splitting thunderclouds got denser and brighter, and then was divided into 9 flashes. Each one of the 9 flashes, huge and colorful, gushed right into the bottom of the huge hole in the tribulation passing pinnacle. 9 sacred lights coming at the same time. 9 sacred lights. Everyone became breathless. The sacred light, containing tremendous power, helped cultivators recover and transform their power. Generally speaking, cultivators who pass the God test of the first heaven only receive 1 sacred light. The second heaven too. And the lights were usually narrow. But now 9 sacred lights came at the same time. The size of each was 1/10 as large as normal ones. What did this mean? Master of the Diyu Palace said. The more difficult the God test is, the more benefits after that. I remember I received 3 sacred lights a meter wide after the fire test, which already brought me huge benefits. And now, after such a horrible inverse cultivation test, Jian Wushuang will certainly get far more benefits than we could imagine. I wonder how powerful he could become after receiving 9 sacred lights. Lord Wucong was excited. Others cultivators were amazed and also admired Jian Wushuang. They were all waiting to see Jian Wushuang receive the sacred lights. Half of the tribulation passing pinnacle was destroying, leaving a huge, dark and lifeless hole. Right at the bottom of the hole, Jian Wushuang was lying there, injured and weak. Despite the protection of the blood-killing plate armor, the powerful sacred thunder struck Jian Wushuang, nearly tearing him apart and burning his skin. Thanks to his inverse cultivation and the experience of immortality, Jian Wushuang became extremely resilient, which explained why he survived such a devastating attack. Others, including universe gods in the 3rd heaven like Master of Diyu Palace, couldn't have been as lucky as Jian Wushuang under the same attack. How lucky am I? Jian Wushuang lay there extremely weak, but he smiled happily at this moment. He was delighted for his achievement. Although he had almost died, he now survived and got away with death. He had passed the first part of the inverse cultivation test. Now he was blessed by the 9 sacred lights. The power of warmth went into the body of Jian Wushuang, relieving his great pain and making him comfortable. He was embracing the sacred lights safe and sound. The 9 sacred lights cradled him just as a kind mother would for her child. Thanks to the lights, Jian Wushuang recovered himself just within a moment, several times faster than King of Venomous Worms. And soon Jian Wushuang started to transform himself. Chapter 1322, Transformation. Chapter 1322, Transformation. Transformation. The transformation was a transformation of the divine body. The transformation was also the transformation of spiritual power to divine power. It was a transformation from universe master to universe god. It was also a transformation from 4-star ancient god to 5-star ancient god. At the same time, it was a transformation from weak to strong. Universe god. In an ordinary world, he could really be considered an expert. At this level, he could really be considered a true god. This feeling. It's such a nice feeling. Jian Wushuang sat up. He closed his eyes, and a smile was plastered on his face, while he enjoyed the nice feeling that was brought forward from the transformation. At the same time, he was also enjoying the joy derived from the constant increment of power from the transformation. The transformation was vast. Jian Wushuang could feel a tremendous change happening in his bones, muscles, and cells all over his body every second. His divine body was experiencing a frenzied enhancement at an unbelievable speed. Virum. The spiritual power in Jian Wushuang's body was also starting to transform. The process of spiritual power transforming into divine power originally required a set amount of time. Like many universe gods who just passed their god's test, merely parts of their divine powers transformed, but they still required another period of time to slowly transform. Then, they would finally complete their transformation and become a real universe god. However, Jian Wushuang skipped over the process entirely. Jian Wushuang could clearly feel the terrifying transformation speed of his divine power. In a brief moment where he took a few breaths, and most of his divine power had successfully transformed. As time ticked, the divine power in his body completed its transformation. Divine power, is this my divine power? Jian Wushuang could feel the surging power filling up his body. Divine power, the symbol of a universe god. The strength of divine power represented the true power of a universe god to a certain extent. Jian Wushuang could clearly feel how ferocious his divine power was. The king of venomous worms previously said that the strength of divine power, including the strength of divine body, based on the power of one integrating sword principle. Some were high level in integrating sword principle, so the moment they break through and become a universe god, the level of their divine power would be enhanced to an advanced or peak level. So, they could easily become an advanced universe god or peak universe god after they enhanced their unique skill. But there are also some who had too low of a level in integrating sword principle, so their divine power merely reached the level of a beginner universe god when they become a universe god. Even if they constantly enhance their power with the aid of unique skills and secret skills in the future, it'd still be difficult for them to become a peak universe god in the first heaven. It'd be a dream for them to even undergo God's test in the second heaven. As for me, I combine the 3 strongest sword principles, and I am an inverse cultivator. The moment I break through and become universe god, my divine power would be ridiculously strong. I could feel that the strength of my divine power is about 100 times stronger than an ordinary peak universe god in the first heaven. Jian Wushuang was surprised. That was the benefit for cultivation from combining 3 strongest sword principle. If he were to be like an ordinary cultivator, where the combined sword principle wasn't as strong, or he only combined one of the strongest sword principles with 2 other creation-level sword principles, it was reckoned that the strength of his divine power, after he became a universe god, wouldn't be comparable to peak universe god in the first heaven. Even with his special circumstance that he was doing inverse cultivation, his divine power would only be stronger by a few folds than a peak universe god in the first heaven. But then, as he combined the 3 strongest sword principles, his divine power was 100 times more powerful than a peak universe god in the first heaven once he became universe god. How great of an advantage that was! Just as Jian Wushuang transformed his divine power, a brilliant golden light lit up. The dim golden light was formed entirely by pure ancient god power, and it was soaring towards Jian Wushuang's glabella that very moment. His ancient god body exposed naturally. On his glabella, there were originally 4 four-pointed stars. Then, along with the gathering of dim golden light, the 5th four-pointed star quickly gathered, and it took shape very quickly. 5-star ancient god, it's here. 5-star ancient god. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist as he felt the tremendous increment of the ancient god power. He felt extremely happy. Right then, Jian Wushuang suddenly felt a stir in his heart. Right when he became 5-star ancient god, there was an extra part of memory that appeared in his head. The memory had no symptoms, and it appeared directly in his head. Memory inheritance. Jian Wushuang shook. He wasn't unfamiliar with the sight. Back then, when he first woke the blood of an ancient god, the same scene happened. He, too, inherited part of the memory and mastered the 3 fingers of ancient god. The 3 fingers of ancient god was a unique skill of the ancient god clan, and it had been rather useful for Jian Wushuang. Then, as he became a 5-star ancient god, there was another part of memory inheritance that appeared in his head. The content of the inheritance memory was another unique skill, and it was also 3 fingers. It turned out that the supreme unique skill of an ancient god clan wasn't only 3 fingers. Jian Wushuang commented. In the inheritance memory, he received a brand new 3 fingers technique. It was the 4th finger, God's test. The 5th finger, get through difficulty. The 6th finger, sun corrosion. The 3 fingers were fiercer compared to the 3 fingers, including break boundaries, break the star, destroy the world that Jian Wushuang obtained previously. Of course, the requirement to perform was much stricter. With the 3 new fingers, I have another trump card on hand. Jian Wushuang smiled, and then closed his eyes to continue enjoying the transformation. His divine power and ancient god power had fully transformed. But his divine body continued to level up tremendously. While a large number of cultivators waited patiently outside Tribunal Passing Pinnacle. When they saw the descending divine light, they could tell that Jian Wushuang wasn't dead. Just as expected, they could feel Jian Wushuang's breathing again. The reason why they could feel him again was that the divine light helped Jian Wushuang recover from his injuries, and Jian Wushuang's aura was elevated. Along with Jian Wushuang's aura growing stronger and fiercer, the speed of the elevation was extremely terrifying. The transformation continued for about an hour and finally ceased. The huge thundercloud in the void above finally dispersed and disappeared entirely. At the bottom of the huge pit on Tribunal Passing Pinnacle, 9 rays of divine light put its capability to full play, and it then disappeared entirely. Everything settled down. All living things in the universe resumed their tranquility. In the silence, a figure slowly rose up from the pit, and finally appeared in the universe. When the figure appeared, he instantly became the center of attention. Countless gazes suddenly gathered in the same direction. Chapter 1323. The Only Opportunities. Chapter 1323. The Only Opportunities. Jian Wushuang. Cultivators and universe gods outside the tribulation passing pinnacle started at the sight of the figure rising from the hole, standing without a word for a long time. This was definitely the most unforgettable day for those universe gods. They had witnessed the most horrible god test ever in the eternal chaotic world. And they also had witnessed the success of an unprecedented genius. Right now the genius was in front of them. In the eyes of all, Jian Wushuang fully recovered all his injuries and smiled to all those who were watching him. Whiz! A streak of scarlet light gushed from the earth and flashed toward Jian Wushuang. And the light transformed into a 1,000-foot moon gazer. Hi my bro! King of Venomous Worms nodded, looking at Jian Wushuang excitedly with his scarlet eyes. It's good to see you again. Jian Wushuang smiled to King of Venomous Worms. You too. King of Venomous Worms nodded. Come back into my body. I now feel uncomfortable when I am without you. So King of Venomous Worms nodded and transformed into a streak of scarlet light, and got into Jian Wushuang's body. King of Venomous Worms clearly felt the difference when he entered into Jian Wushuang's body. Quite a big change, King of Venomous Worms said. Yes, Jian Wushuang smiled. You must be powerful at this level, King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded. I feel that I am much more powerful than I was. But to what extent? I should have a try and find out. Then have a try. King of Venomous Worms felt confused. Jian Wushuang headed to the crowd. Master of the Diyu Palace, Lord Wu Tsong and Scarlet Island Master came to welcome him. Good job Jian Wushuang. Master of the Diyu Palace expressed his admiration. The words of Master of the Diyu Palace surprised others. After all, the privileged master seldom expressed his admiration to someone in the public. But the power and the resilience of Jian Wushuang was indeed worth his admiration. Lord Wuzong also asked Jian Wushuang, "How about having a talk together?" "Sure." Jian Wushuang nodded. Then Jian Wushuang looked at those from the Scarlet Island. "Congratulations." Scarlet Island Master expressed his congratulations after staring at Jian Wushuang for a while. Jian Wushuang was very happy when he heard the word. It was really a delightful moment. "Congratulations. Congratulations." Many universe gods, whether they had made acquaintance with Jian Wushuang, all congratulated him. Some talked to Jian Wushuang humbly, and even felt frightened. After all, even though they were universe gods from the second heaven, they couldn't survive such a horrible god test. And Jian Wushuang had impressed them with his power and skills. After saying thanks and talking with the others, Jian Wushuang suddenly looked toward one direction. It was where the crowd from the Holy Prefecture were standing. They felt nervous when Jian Wushuang looked at them, especially Universe God Jiuhai, who had mixed feelings. He had believed that Jian Wushuang would die in the god test. And the god test had indeed caused great difficulties to Jian Wushuang. But unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang survived. And now, Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough and become Universe God of the first heaven, which made it more difficult for Universe God Jiuhai to take revenge. Universe God Jiuhai, Jian Wushuang said. Universe God Jiuhai looked at Jian Wushuang. "Okay, you are lucky this time." "You are right, or I will die many times." Jian Wushuang continued. "Very soon I will be leaving the Diyu universe." "Leaving?" Universe God Jiuhai frowned. Other universe gods around them were not surprised to hear so. For geniuses like Jian Wushuang, staying in the Diyu universe would be a waste for their talents. Jian Wushuang could only unleash his potential in more prestigious places like the Snow Dojo or the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. "What do you mean?" Universe God Jiuhai looked at Jian Wushuang indifferently. "I mean, if you are going to take revenge for your disciples, don't lose the opportunity while I am here." "Do you think I will let you get away?" Universe God Jiuhai said. "Definitely not." Jian Wushuang continued. "That's why I will give you an opportunity to kill me. How about today? You can do whatever you want to kill me, without any intervention by talents from the Scarlet Island. And I would also ask Master of the Diyu Palace not to stop you." What Jian Wushuang said stirred a strong response in the crowd. "What?" Universe gods from the Scarlet Island frowned. "Do you mean you are going to fight with me individually?" "Exactly." Jian Wushuang nodded smilingly. "That's the only opportunity you have to take revenge for your deceased disciples." Universe God Jiuhai felt nervous and hesitated. Other universe gods were quite interested in how Universe God Jiuhai replied. Chapter 1324, An Explosive Roar. Chapter 1324, An Explosive Roar. Universe God Jiuhai had complicated feelings. He wished to kill Jian Wushuang, but he was afraid that he wasn't Jian Wushuang's match. He watched Jian Wushuang as he underwent God's test. He passed through such a terrifying God's test. Then he broke through and became a universe god in the first heaven. His power definitely increased tremendously. "I am a universe god in the second heaven, and there are so many people gathering around. Regardless, I can't be intimidated by a universe god in the first heaven, who just passed the god's test." Universe God Jiuhai clenched his fists, and his eyes were glistening with determination. He had obviously made a decision. "Jian Wushuang, this is what you asked for." Universe God Jiuhai looked towards Jian Wushuang again. "Come on." Jian Wushuang smiled faintly with confidence. The surrounding crowd saw and made space for it to be a battlefield. In the void, before the gaze of various universe gods, Jian Wushuang was standing face to face with Universe God Jiuhai. Universe God Jiuhai was beaming with a strong murderous intention as he glared at Jian Wushuang. He's just undergone God's test, and the divine power in his body should have started transforming. The overall increment in power shouldn't be too vast. However, He has quite a number of trump cards. I can't give him any chance to play one. I shall use my strongest power and kill him straight away with thunder power. Universe God Jyohai thought clearly and quickly made a move. Virum. A vast expanse of divine power surged out from Universe God Jyohai's body, and it formed a huge crimson ocean that instant. The boundless divine power flowing insanely within Crimson Ocean, while Universe God Jyohai flipped his palm, and a crimson long spear appeared in his hand. Universe God Jyohai moved his wrist, and the crimson long spear parted the surrounding ocean. When he took a stride, he instantly moved across a far distance and appeared before Jian Wushuang. The crimson long spear became a crimson, flowing light and plundered forward. The very moment the crimson long spear plundered forward, the ocean with omnipotent divine power gathered at an unbelievable speed. In the end, the boundless power of the divine power ocean flowed into the long spear, and the power of the long spear increased tremendously. This is the strongest spear I've created through my cultivation for a long time. Jian Wushuang die. Universe God Jyohai shrilled. The long spear let out a billowing force at that very moment, and everyone was astonished. Such strong power. He lived up to his position as the master of Jyohai Mansion. Although he is the last among all 4 mansion masters in Holy Prefecture, he was a universe god in the second heaven after all. Universe God Jyohai pulled the strongest unique skill right at the beginning. Universe God Jyohai didn't show mercy at all. He wanted to let out his strongest power right at the beginning, so that Jian Wushuang couldn't perform any trump cards in time. His thinking was sound, but unfortunately, he underestimated Jian Wushuang's power. In the void, Jian Wushuang stood calmly as he watched the crimson flowing light charge towards him coldly. Then he creased his eyebrows slightly. This spear feels so weak. Jian Wushuang stood there without moving an inch. He didn't look like he was going to block the attack. He let the crimson flowing light charge at his chest. You're asking for death. Universe God Jyohai saw, and gave an explosive roar as he laughed coldly in his head. The very next moment, the crimson flowing light hit on Jian Wushuang's chest straight away without hindrance. Clash. The noise of metal clashing against each other was heard. The power that the crimson flowing light contained exploded entirely. The ferocious divine power pressed on the surface of Jian Wushuang's blood-killing plate armor, and constantly made noises. But Jian Wushuang's body didn't move. Very soon the crimson, flowing light exhausted and dispersed. In the end, there was a crimson long spear stabbed on Jian Wushuang's chest. Universe God Jyohai opened his eyes wide then. How is it possible? Universe God looked at the sight before him in shock. The strongest spear he had used with his all hit Jian Wushuang without any hindrance. But in the end, Jian Wushuang didn't even move an inch. From the beginning till the end, Jian Wushuang didn't move at all. One must know, even if Jian Wushuang's divine body could resist his attack, the impact of his long spear should cause Jian Wushuang to move back, but he didn't even move an inch. In other words, Jian Wushuang's divine body was stronger beyond his imagination. It was so strong that he could ignore the impact that the long spear instilled. His strongest spear might only be a scratch, or an itch to Jian Wushuang. Universe God Jyohai, your strongest power is merely at such a level? Jian Wushuang overlooked coldly. Universe God Jyohai was speechless in astonishment. Too weak. Jian Wushuang shook his head. With power of such a level, you aren't even qualified to be killed in my hand. Go away. The divine power and ancient god power in Jian Wushuang's body erupted. The roar came out from his ancient god mouth, and it suddenly shook the earth. Rumble. A tremendous noise broke out in the universe. Universe God Jyohai bore the brunt naturally, as he was right in front of Jian Wushuang. The terrifying sound wave brought about an unbelievable impact, and hit Universe God Jyohai directly. His ears, nose and mouth were instantly bleeding, while all over his body and organs got severely injured. He was shot backwards like a cannon. Even the crimson long spear in his hand flew off. Universe God Jyohai stood on his feet again. He just stood up and he immediately spat a mouthful of blood again. He lifted his head and stared at Jian Wushuang. His eyes were full of terror. The surrounding spectator was in awe. They knew that Jian Wushuang, who underwent the terrifying god's test, definitely would have a tremendous improvement in power, but no one expected it to be so great. His divine body could resist universe god Jiuhai's strongest spear without moving an inch. Just an explosive roar led to severe injury of universe god Jiuhai. How scary his ability was. His defensive skill was strong originally. Previously, when he underwent the god's test, he relied on his divine body to resist 3 lightnings. Once he passed the god's test, the divine body naturally improved tremendously. To be able to resist universe god Jiuhai's full blow, with his divine body only, I can accept that. But with an explosive roar, he caused universe god Jiuhai severe injury. That is a little unbelievable. The master of Scarlet Island said in astonishment. It's divine power. The master of Du Palace, who stood in the void, his pupil contracted. In his explosive roar, it contained a fierce divine power. With the strength of the divine power, if I didn't see it wrongly, I reckon he has reached the level of peak universe god of the second heaven. Chapter 1325. Jian Wushuang's Power Sword. Chapter 1325. Jian Wushuang's Power Sword. Now his divine power is equal to a peak universe god in the second heaven. It is because of the inverse cultivation. The legendary inverse cultivation. Master of the Du Palace and Lord Wucang were both amazed by Jian Wushuang. Universe god Jiuhai was only the primary level universe god in the second heaven, and Jian Wushuang's divine power skyrocketed as he roared, causing severe injuries of the formal one. Universe god Jiuhai. Jian Wushuang glanced at him. I have given you the opportunity, but it's you who hasn't seized it. Hearing the words, Universe god Jiuhai was furious, but he could do nothing about it. Nothing. He also knew that today was the only opportunity for him, and it was unrealistic for him to take revenge in the future. Even if Jian Wushuang didn't leave the Dayu universe, his power would further develop to a level far beyond universe god Jiuhai. Now universe god Jiuhai fell into silence, and Jian Wushuang now shifted his attention to someone else. Golden Sun Sect Master. Jian Wushuang said. Golden Sun Sect Master. The thin elderly man with a golden robe looked toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang said to him immediately, You once asked me whether your son was killed by me. Now my answer is yes. Golden Sun Sect Master looked at Jian Wushuang with a murderous look. Want to kill me? Jian Wushuang sneered. You are doomed to die. Golden Sun Sect Master got infuriated and jumped at him immediately. Everyone felt surprised. Soon after Jian Wushuang defeated universe god Jiuhai, he was now challenging Golden Sun Sect Master. But Golden Sun Sect Master, as the peak universe god in the second heaven, was much more powerful than universe god Jiuhai. Why does Jian Wushuang keeping challenging those powerful universe gods? Talents from the Scarlet Island felt confused, including the Scarlet Island Master. It was clear why Jian Wushuang had challenged universe god Jiuhai. They had an old score to settle. But why did he choose to fight with Golden Sun Sect Master? Golden Sun Sect Master had been unsure about whether Jian Wushuang killed his son, and now, Jian Wushuang admitted it, giving Golden Sun Sect Master an excuse to kill him. Scarlet Island Master didn't think it was a wise choice. But he didn't know that Jian Wushuang did so in order to know what level he was now. Only by battling with powerful universe gods could he know how far he had gone. Jian Wushuang didn't use much effort to defeat universe god Jiuhai. That was why he had turned to Golden Sun Sect Master. Jian Wushuang felt excited to battle with this peak universe god in the second heaven. I will kill you. Golden Sun Sect Master took action without any hesitation, forming a horrible power immediately. A strong pressure came to Jian Wushuang. A peak universe god is indeed superior to a primary one. Jian Wushuang smiled, without any fear. Come on. Boom. His divine power was soaring. Fully ready and aggressive, Jian Wushuang collided instantly with Golden Sun Sect Master. The latter, wearing a pair of golden gloves, collected all his divine power, and beat Jian Wushuang in the instant of collision. Bang! After that, with a resounding tiger roar, The shadow of a giant golden tiger appeared behind Golden Sun Sect Master and slapped Jian Wushuang with its palm. In response, Jian Wushuang operated his power of the ancient god, and the 4 stars between his eyebrows were shining. He clenched his hands and a horrible power broke out. The power, which was strong enough to smash the heavens, collided directly with the flap from Golden Sun Sect Master. Bang! In the collision, a tremendous divine power spread all around them, forming numerous power waves. Humph! Jian Wushuang's eyes were bursting with lightning. Bang! 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 And he gave 3 punches, combing the divine power and the ancient god power perfectly. Every punch contained a deadly force. Golden Sun Sect Master immediately responded, as fast as a thunder. Boom! 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 Golden Sun Sect Master was hit back by the 3 collisions, while Jian Wushuang stood still and resisted the great power. Golden Sun Sect Master exclaimed after he finally stood stably, "How powerful it is!" Actually, Golden Sun Sect Master didn't use any secret skills. Instead, he confronted Jian Wushuang only with his divine power. And it turned out that Jian Wushuang had the advantage over him. Jian Wushuang, only a universe god in the first heaven, unleashed a power stronger than a peak universe god in the second heaven. Jian Wushuang was delighted about his power. With the inverse cultivation combining the 3 most powerful swordsmanships, I am 100 times more powerful than the peak universe god in the first heaven. With the help of the blood-killing plate armor, my divine power is now equal to the peak universe god in the second heaven. I am also a 5-star royal ancient god. When my power roars, I can easily defeat Golden Sun Sect Master. Jian Wushuang was ecstatic. Jian Wushuang was only a universe god in the first heaven, but he had unleashed a power stronger than a peak universe god in the second heaven. Use all your power or you will be defeated. Jian Wushuang laughed resoundingly. Chapter 1326, Come to a Close. Chapter 1326, Come to a Close. Son, you only got stronger by a slight bit, and you thought I couldn't deal with you. The Master of Golden Sun Sect roared. He spoke then, and an ancient and bold aura soared up in the air. On the Master of Golden Sun Sect's right palm, a strong golden light flowed, and it was harsh on the eyes. The right hand of the Master of Golden Sun Sect slapped. Emperor Print. Rumble. A boundless golden light immediately formed a huge golden palm. The golden palm brought. Jian Wushuang squinted slightly. His soul power had swept out long ago, and he could clearly feel that the golden palm contained a terrifying power. Although I'm stronger than him in terms of strength, I'm far behind in terms of unique skill, Jian Wushuang sighed. He became universe god and had a tremendous improvement in power. Both his divine power and divine body had gone through a huge transformation. But on unique skill, there wasn't much difference. The strongest unique skill that he created was only Test Wrecker, which was only a beginner rank 2 unique skill. Then, the unique skill performed by the Master of Golden Sun Sect. Its power was a peak rank 2 unique skill. Their difference in unique skill was too vast. I can't win against him with a unique skill. I have to rely on other measures to compensate for the difference. Jian Wushuang's glare turned cold. He flipped his hand, and a golden calabash appeared in it. Swoosh. An enormous amount of blaze quicksand flowed out, and formed a boundless desert that covered the entire battlefield. The Master of Golden Sun Sect, including the emperor-like handprint that he created, was covered by the quicksand. The terrifying realm pressure spread across directly. What? The Master of Golden Sun Sect was angry. How is this possible? How can my power be suppressed by 50%? 50%. Yes, the Master of Golden Sun Sect's power was actually suppressed by 50%. The power of the humongous handprint that he had pulled was suddenly weakened by 50%. Most of the people watching the battle noticed. The Blaze Quicksand realm was triggered by divine power. The stronger the divine power, naturally the more ridiculous the power that was triggered. Although Jian Wushuang was just a universe god in the first heaven, his diving power was not any weaker compared to a peak universe god in the second heaven. To trigger realm with such divine power, even I, a universe god in the third heaven, might be affected slightly too. Hence, for a peak universe god in the second heaven to be suppressed within the blaze quicksand realm, and to have his power suppressed by 50%, is actually quite normal. The master of Du Palace smiled faintly. The blaze quicksand realm was already very impressive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have borrowed it from Jian Wushuang previously. Then, Jian Wushuang became universe god, and his divine power increased tremendously. When he triggered the realm again, the power was naturally far stronger than before. On the battlefield, after the formation of Blaze Quicksand Realm posed great oppression to the Master of Golden Sun sect, there was an enormous amount of red flame that soared up from Jian Wushuang's body. The red flame suddenly formed a sea fire around, while Jian Wushuang was the emperor among the sea fire. Scarlet Kingdom was performed straight away. The Blaze Quicksand Realm was used to oppress the opponent, while Scarlet Kingdom was used to increase his power significantly. Jian Wushuang merged the two techniques together perfectly. Then Jian Wushuang drew his sword. Buzz! A cold, sharp noise broke out across the sky. There was a sudden eye-catching sword light that caught everyone's attention. Jian Wushuang played the strongest stroke that he had created test wrecker. With the aid of Scarlet Kingdom, the sword gave out an earth-shattering power. The very next moment, it collided with the huge handprint face-to-face. Rumble! A vigorous rumble, and the universe shook. After the loud noise, Jian Wushuang, who was among the sea fire, suddenly stumbled and took a few steps back. But he steadied himself soon enough. So strong! There was a tinge of terror in Jian Wushuang's eyes. I am much stronger than him in strength. Plus, I've used both Blaze Quicksand Gourd and Scarlet Kingdom's realm, and even performed my strongest sword principle. But I am still at an absolute disadvantage? Although Jian Wushuang was shocked, he understood the situation. They were two vastly different in unique skill after all. Jian Wushuang, you merely created a beginner rank 2 unique skill. You are still slightly behind, if you want to be evenly matched with the Master of Golden Sun sect. Wait till you create an advanced rank 2 unique skill. Then you should be able to fight face-to-face with him, and not fall behind. King of Venomous Worm's voice was heard in Jian Wushuang's mind. Advanced rank 2 unique skill? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. A beginner rank 2 unique skill had been created. Hence, an advanced rank 2 unique skill naturally shouldn't be too far away for him. In the void before Jian Wushuang, the Master of Golden Sun sect stood there while his face grew grave. Although my full blow shook him off, he wasn't injured at all. There wasn't even any weakening of his aura. The Master of Golden Sun sect looked glum. A simple exchange of blows, and he understood that he can't possibly kill Jian Wushuang. Even if he could defeat Jian Wushuang, he wouldn't be able to kill him. That's it. Suddenly there was a voice. Swoosh, swoosh. There were two figures that appeared right in the middle of the battlefield, and stood in between Jian Wushuang and the Master of Golden Sun sect. Looking at the Master of Du Palace and Wu Tsong getting involved, Jian Wushuang and the Master of Golden Sun sect naturally ceased. The Master of Golden Sun sect, Universe God Jiu Hai. I know that you bear deep-seated hatred towards Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang gave both of you a chance, and you didn't seize the opportunity. From today onwards, the two of you, including the forces under your control, should not find trouble with him. Otherwise, without him taking action, I will not be polite to any of you. The Master of Du Palace spoke coldly. Yes, the Master of Golden Sun sect and Universe God Jiu Hai nodded. The two of them didn't show any unwillingness. On the contrary, they held great gratitude towards the Master of Du Palace. Because the Master of Du Palace got involved with resolving the matter, it helped them too. With Jian Wushuang's talent, if he were to hold a grudge against them, things definitely wouldn't end well. As for the resentment between them and Jian Wushuang, in this world, the strong will forever be the master. Jian Wushuang gave them a chance to take revenge, but they couldn't kill Jian Wushuang. So who can they blame? Alright, this has ended. Dismissed. The Master of Du Palace waved his hand. The surrounding universe gods heard. Then they bowed before the master of Diyu Palace and left one after another. Of course, even after they left, whatever they saw that day would definitely be their topic of conversation for quite some time. They believed that it would also stir a commotion in the entire Diyu world because of what happened. After all, Jian Wushuang just underwent a god's test that everyone found unbelievable. Chapter 1327 Refused. Chapter 1327 Refused. In a lofty building of the Diyu Palace. Take a seat. Master of the Diyu Palace said to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang sat down without any hesitation. Although there was still a large gap between himself and the master of the Diyu Palace and Lord Wuxia, the two gods treated him in a very respectful way. Jian Wushuang, I told you that I would give you a recommendation token to the Snow Dojo if you passed the god test. Now I have decided to take you there myself. Lord Wuxia said. Snow Dojo. Before the inverse cultivation test, Jian Wushuang was eager to go there. But now, it is unnecessary for you to go there, Jian Wushuang. King of Venomous Worms told him. Although numerous geniuses gather in the Snow Dojo, the place is actually nothing compared to the eternal chaotic world and lineage of star that you belong to. I recommended you to go there for a period of cultivation before the god test, because at that time you were not powerful enough to go to the lineage of star. But now, honestly speaking, if you spend some time cultivating your unique skills, your power can be equal to a peak universe god in the second heaven. Even when you meet with a universe god in the third heaven, you can survive with your power, as well as all the tools you have. Therefore, going to the Snow Dojo is a waste of time for you. You can directly head for the lineage of star. Jian Wushuang was surprised by what King of Venomous Worms said. But he also knew that what the Snow Dojo could bring him was limited. And he made a decision. Lord Wuxia, Jian Wushuang said, thank you for your goodwill, but I will not go to the Snow Dojo. Aha! Lord Wuxia frowned. And Master of the Diyu Palace was also surprised. They never expected that Jian Wushuang would turn down their invitation. After all, the Snow Dojo was the dream of many geniuses, including Qing Yang Universe God, who failed because Lord Wuxia didn't think he was qualified for the opportunities. Think twice, please, Lord Wuxia said. Though you are talented, you need a good environment, the guidance of other talents and plenty of resources to help you in the inverse cultivation. Master of the Diyu Palace added. Jian Wushuang, Lord Wuxia seldom provides such a good opportunities to others. And you can also unleash your potential in the Snow Dojo. Don't be too confident about your power. They were both trying to persuade Jian Wushuang. In their opinion, the Snow Dojo was the best choice of Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang told them smilingly, actually, I am leaving the Diyu universe for the 10 cultivation sanctuaries that I am really long for. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries? Master of the Diyu Palace felt surprised at first, but soon understood. No wonder you are not going to the Snow Dojo. Lord Wuxia smiled. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries are the core of the eternal chaotic world that all cultivators are dreaming of. They are absolutely better than the Snow Dojo. You have great talents and rich potential, even better than many geniuses in the Snow Dojo. So indeed, you'd better go to your dream place. Master of the Diyu Palace said. But not everyone can get there. For example, do you know the route to get there? Jian Wushuang had no idea. After all, it hadn't been long since he left his hometown, the Green Fire World. Even King of Venomous Worms, who was well informed, had no idea. Jian Wushuang asked Master of the Diyu Palace and Lord Wuxia. But they laughed. Although we are privileged in the Snow Kingdom as universe gods in the third heaven, even we've never been to, or plan to go to, the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, which are only a distant legend to us. Okay, Jian Wushuang frowned. How could he go there without know the route? At that time Lord Wuxia said, but I know a guy who has been to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, and he is in the Snow Dojo. Jian Wushuang was interested. Could you just wait for me for around 10 years, and then go with me to the Snow Dojo? I can ask that guy for the route. You don't have to join the Snow Dojo. It's all up to you. Lord Wutsong proposed. After hesitation for a while, Jian Wushuang agreed. Okay, after 10 years, when I and Master of the Diyu Palace have finished our current tasks, I will go to your place. Jian Wushuang nodded. You can stay here in these 10 years, and I can lend you the Little Scattered Stars game for you to study. Thank you very much. Chapter 1328. Depart to Snow Dojo. Chapter 1328. Depart to Snow Dojo. The incident of Jian Wushuang passing through the god's test stirred a commotion up within Diyu world. All the experts from various forces were surprised. But the hubbub merely lasted for a short period of time until it settled down. For the rest of the time, Jian Wushuang continued to stay in Diyu Palace and resolve the Little Scattered Stars game. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang sat before the Little Scattered Stars game, whilst the 50-second black chess piece slowly dispersed from the chess set. As expected, after becoming Universe God, the speed of me resolving the Little Scattered Stars game is much faster than before. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He was in seclusion for less than 7 days, but he resolved the 50-second move of the Little Scattered Stars game very quickly. One must remember that he spent a few years' time to resolve the 51st step, when he was a Universe Master. Don't think about how fast you can resolve the move. Take your time and accumulate slowly, according to the method I taught you. Then, you will gain huge rewards, King of Venomous Worms said. Of course, Jian Wushuang smiled. Then he continued to resolve the 53rd move. The time flew past. Another 60 years passed. Done. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and had a smile plastered on his face. On the Little Scattered Stars game before him, the last black chess piece dispersed. There was nothing left on the huge chess set. 60 years from the 51st move, you resolved the 100 moves Little Scattered Stars game. If the Master of Diyu Palace and Wutsong were to find out, they might be embarrassed. King of Venomous Worms' voice was heard. Ha! Jian Wushuang laughed. After becoming a Universe God, it became easier to resolve the Little Scattered Stars game, and his speed was naturally faster. On top of that, he followed King of Venomous Worms' instruction to accumulate slowly. Hence, there was almost no bottleneck situation later in the game. That's why he could resolve the Little Scattered Stars game entirely in such a short period of time. I originally thought that the Little Scattered Stars game wouldn't be much use after I became a Universe God. However, from the way it seems, not only was it useful for me, it's very useful for me. Now that I have resolved the entire game, I have reaped a bumper harvest, Jian Wushuang exclaimed. In the 60 years, his understanding towards the nature of swordsmanship increased tremendously. Then if he was given time, he could definitely create an even stronger unique skill. Don't panic. Follow Lord Wutsong to Snow Dojo first. On the way, I can slowly digest the accumulated sword principle, and then create a unique skill. Jian Wushuang mumbled to himself. Wutsong and the Master of the Diyu were done 3 years ago, and they sent a message to Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang was in the last stage of resolving the Little Scattered Stars game then. Hence, he made Wutsong waited for him. When Jian Wushuang left the secret room, he immediately planned to leave with Wutsong. In Diyu world, at the border of the floating land, there was a boundless dark void before them. Wutsong waved. Swoosh! A huge green spaceship appeared from nowhere. Jian Wushuang, let's go. Wutsong appeared first on the green spaceship. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate, leaping onto the Wutsong spaceship. The green spaceship immediately set off at a terrifying speed and moved towards Snow Dojo. In the dark void, it was total darkness. There was almost no light at all. A green spaceship swept past in the dark void. The speed was far beyond a Universe God's ability. In a cabin of the green spaceship, Wutsong sat calmly while he sipped on his wine. He stole glances at Jian Wushuang next to him occasionally. Jian Wushuang is making a painstaking effort for cultivation. From Diyu World to Snow Dojo, based on the speed my spaceship is traveling, We will arrive in 10 years' time. In such a short period of time, he didn't give up cultivation. He's really, Wuxia shook his head. However, what Wuxia didn't know was that while 10 years was a short time to himself, Jian Wuxia could improve his power significantly in 10 years. Especially considering the fact that he had just completely resolved the Little Scattered Stars game, meaning that there were many accumulated sword principles waiting to be digested. A green spaceship was moving very quickly, but suddenly, a conscience abruptly swept over it. Wuxia's facial expression changed and he bellowed directly, "Whoever you are, move out of my way!" His bellow spread through the cabin and echoed in the surrounding void. Many figures were floating hundreds of thousand miles away from the green spaceship. The moment they heard Wuxia bellow, the figures were shocked. "It's a universe god in the third heaven. Hurry up and leave." Without hesitation, the figures immediately ran away. In the cabin, Jian Wuxia was awakened by Wuxia's bellow too. He couldn't help but look over. "Lord Wuxia, what's going on?" "Nothing, only some narrow-minded thieves." Wuxia smiled in disdain. "Thieves? Bandits?" Jian Wuxia looked shocked. He also knew that there were some bandits wandering in the dark void. Those bandits specialized in killing experts that passed by, and carried out a deal that couldn't be exposed. As the dark void was really too huge, Snow Kingdom couldn't do anything about the bandits either. Those experts from the world were mostly very careful. In a normal situation, no one dared to wander around the dark void recklessly if they didn't possess a level of power. Of course, as a universe god in the third heaven, who was considered the top expert even in Snow Kingdom, he could totally run freely in the dark void. Almost no bandits dared to provoke him. "Jian Wuxia, the bandits you ran into in Snow Kingdom were just child's play. The scariest place with real bandits is the boundless void, near the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. That is the place with the most reckless bandits, with the craziest massacres and countless experts' nightmare. Many experts from various kingdoms and worlds died in the boundless void on their way to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. You are going to Lineage of Star, and you will definitely pass by the boundless void. To you it would also be a challenge. It is also because the boundless void is very dangerous. That's why I wanted you to become stronger before going there," King of Venomous Worms said. "The boundless void?" Jian Wuxia memorized the name. He turned around and looked at Wuxia. "Lord Wuxia, if you come across bandits again, don't chase them away in a hurry. Let them be my lab rats." "Lab rats?" Wuxia looked at Jian Wuxia in surprise. "Previously, when I resolved the Little Scattered Stars game, I came to a realization about sword principles. I have been figuring out ways to create stronger sword principles. Actually, I am really in need of someone to train with me." Jian Wuxia smiled. "Oh, I see," Wuxia smiled. "If so, all right. However, try not to delay too much." "Don't worry, I won't take long," Jian Wuxia smiled. Chapter 1329, Master of Silence Gloriette in the Snow Dojo. Chapter 1329, Master of Silence Gloriette in the Snow Dojo. On the way to the Snow Dojo, Jian Wuxia tried to understand more about the essence of swordsmanship in order to develop more powerful unique skills. When he occasionally met some bandits, he would fight with them to practice his swordsmanship. Jian Wuxia never missed any opportunity for him to cultivate. And 10 years passed quickly. "In front of us is the Snow Sacred Land, let's go there." Lord Wuxia pointed to a vast floating land. The Snow Sacred Land was the capital of the Snow Kingdom, in which the royal family of the Snow Kingdom, powerful groups and several large military forces gathered. Jian Wuxia followed Lord Wuxia to the Snow Sacred Land, and took a wormhole to the Snow Dojo. The headquarters of the Snow Dojo was a vast floating building complex, with numerous palaces and attics. Thanks to Lord Wuxia, Jian Wuxia entered into the headquarters of the Snow Dojo. They went into a gorgeous palace. "Since you aren't a member of the Snow Dojo, it is better for you to stay here, and I will take a chance to ask the route of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries for you," Lord Wuxia said. "Opportunities? Was it so difficult to ask for a route?" Maybe, Lord Wutsong was going to ask for someone with a higher status. Lord Wutsong explained. Yes, the person was Master of Silence Gloriette, one of the 3 masters in the Snow Dojo. Master of Silence Gloriette. He has supreme power and unimaginable talents in the Snow Dojo. He can determine my life and death. Although I am a golden deacon in the Snow Dojo, I don't have many opportunities to see him. Lord Wutsong appeared a little bit embarrassed. Jian Wushuang knew why Lord Wutsong was behaving so cautiously. After all, Master of Silence Gloriette was so powerful that he could determine the life and death of Lord Wutsong. Wait here for around half a month, until the Master of Silence Gloriette holds a meeting with the Golden Deacons. I will ask him at that time. Jian Wushuang expressed his appreciation. He knew how difficult it was to ask the Master of Silence Gloriette for something. So Lord Wutsong wouldn't help him if he didn't think highly of Jian Wushuang's potential, or hoped that Jian Wushuang could join the Snow Dojo. The half a month passed quickly. Jian Wushuang stayed at the palace according to Lord Wutsong's word. Lord Wutsong must have met Master of Silence Gloriette, since many golden deacons attended the meeting. Jian Wushuang was curious about how things were going. And Lord Wutsong didn't come back until the night. But he looked worried when coming back. How is it going? Jian Wushuang asked Lord Wutsong. Lord Wutsong sighed without answering him immediately. Is Master of Silence Gloriette annoyed by my request? No, I didn't even ask. Lord Wutsong felt sorry. Why? Actually, I planned to ask him today in the meeting, but he was angry today in the meeting and he scolded us, even beating 2 golden deacons. How did I dare to ask him right then? Lord Wutsong explained. Jian Wushuang understood now. No one dared to ask anything when Master of Silence Gloriette was angry. But why was he so angry? Jian Wushuang asked. It's all about the ranked battle. Lord Wutsong signed. The ranked battle? Jian Wushuang had never heard about that. Lord Wutsong started to explain. It's the ranked battle with Universe God Palace. You may have only heard about the Snow Dojo when you were in the Daiyu universe. But the Snow Dojo is one of the 2 genius concentration camps in the Snow Kingdom, and the other one is the Universe God Palace. The Snow Dojo and the Universe God Palace were both founded by the royal family of the Snow Kingdom. They were divided and always competing with each other. Every ranked battle is held between the Snow Dojo and the Universe God Palace. The ranked battle is seemingly aimed to facilitate communication among all the talents, but it is in fact a battle to determine the winner. Jian Wushuang nodded. It's understandable that fierce competition rose between 2 genius concentration camps. So Master of Silence Gloriette got angry for losing the battle? Jian Wushuang asked. No. The battle will be held in 3 months, but we know the possibility to win is low when comparing their strengths. What is the probability of victory? Less than 3/10. Lord Wutsong answered. The fact is that the Snow Dojo has been defeated 5 times consecutively. Another defeat will be a stigma for us. No wonder Master of Silence Gloriette is so angry. Every leader would get anxious when his team could barely win after failing in the battle for 5 times. At that moment, the worried Lord Wutsong came up with an idea, and he looked at Jian Wushuang. I know how to ask him. Chapter 1330 Snow Tower. Chapter 1330 Snow Tower. Which way? Jian Wushuang looked over. Very simple. I'll let you join the ranking battle as a Snow Dojo disciple, Wutsong replied. I'll join the battle? Jian Wushuang was surprised. This is the best way, Wutsong said. The ranking battle between Snow Dojo and the Universe God Palace is divided into 3 fights. One between the Universe Gods in the 3rd heaven, one between the Universe Gods in the 2nd heaven, and one between the Universe Gods in the 1st heaven. The party who wins 2 fights out of the 3 will be the final winner. Then, we will be able to compete with the comprehensive level of disciples from Snow Dojo and Universe God Palace. Among the 3 ranking fights in this session, Snow Dojo only has a higher winning chance in the fight between the Universe Gods in the 3rd heaven. The other 2 fights have a lower chance of winning. But if you were to join the fight between universe gods in the first heaven as Snow Dojo's disciple, you'd definitely win. Then Snow Dojo would be able to win 2 fights and be the victor of the ranking battle. The Master of Silence Gloriette would definitely be thrilled. At that point, I'll ask him on your behalf regarding the route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. It'll be much easier. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows when he heard Wu Tsong's suggestion. He thought Wu Tsong's idea was great, but as a prerequisite, he still had to join Snow Dojo. Although he was confident with himself, it wasn't necessary that he would win if he joined the ranking battle. Jian Wushuang, you don't have to worry so much. The experts in Snow Dojo are free and not restrained much. Even if you join Snow Dojo, it's your own decision as to whether you want to stay or leave. No one will force you into anything. Once you complete the ranking battle and obtain your travel route, you can leave straight away. No one will comment much. Plus, if you were to win a victory for Snow Dojo in the ranking battle, you would get an opportunity to go to Tianyuan Mystery Land, Wu Tsong added. Tianyuan Mystery Land? Jian Wushuang stunned. It's one of the sites of opportunity in Snow Kingdom. In the past, only experts from Snow Dojo and Universe God Palace were qualified to enter. Plus, the ranking battle only takes place every 10,000 years, because Mysterious Tianyuan only opens once every 10,000 years. Every time it opens, it is limited to a quota of 30 people. The quota will be based on the winning and losing of ranking battles. If Snow Dojo were to win the ranking battle, the 30 quotas would be Snow Dojo's. On the contrary, if Universe God Palace won, the 30 quotas would be theirs. In the past, whenever Snow Dojo won the battle, the 30 quotas would be passed to 30 experts that participated in the ranking battle. By then, of course, you would be one of them, Wu Tsong explained. Is that so? Jian Wushuang sighed. Jian Wushuang, this is the best method. You will help Snow Dojo to win the ranking battle, and Snow Dojo will provide you with the travel route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. On top of that, you will be rewarded with a chance to enter Tianyuan Mystery Land. This is something that satisfies both parties, Wu Tsong said. Jian Wushuang was left speechless. He then nodded faintly. All right, I'll take it. That's great. Wu Tsong was beaming with joy. He was very clear about Jian Wushuang's power. As Jian Wushuang agreed to participate in the fight between universe gods in the first heaven, that particular fight would have a 99% winning rate. Jian Wushuang, follow me. Then Wu Tsong led Jian Wushuang out from the hall. Snow Dojo was an expert concentration camp in Snow Kingdom. Whoever could enter Snow Dojo were all experts. No one would be just ordinary. For instance, Universe God Qing Yang, who died at Jian Wushuang's hand. When he was in Dayu World, he was once known as the top expert in Dayu World. But in Snow Dojo, he was at the bottom, or maybe he didn't even qualify to be at the bottom. Plus, to join Snow Dojo, one naturally had to undergo a filtering process. Jian Wushuang had the recommendation of Wu Tsong, who was a golden-dressed deacon. Hence, he could skip the process of filtration. However, he would still be required to go through the last procedure. Wu Tsong brought Jian Wushuang to a black tall tower. In front of the black tall tower, there was a drunk elderly with messy hair. Old Lu. Wu Tsong bowed politely at the drunk elderly. The drunk elderly lifted his eyes and looked at Wu Tsong and Jian Wushuang. He then said slowly, "It's you, Wu Tsong. Who is this next to you?" "This is someone I got to know earlier. I saw that he was quite talented, so I brought him to Snow Dojo for him to try Snow Tower," Wu Tsong said humbly. "Is he?" The drunk elderly nodded and waved. "There's no one in Snow Tower. Just go ahead." "Thank you," Wu Tsong replied and turned to Jian Wushuang. "Jian Wushuang, go ahead. There are 10 levels in total. The moment you passes through the 7th level, you're considered to have passed. Then, you can join Snow Dojo." "The 7th?" Jian Wushuang nodded. Then he walked towards Snow Tower. Jian Wushuang entered Snow Tower, while Wu Tsong waited patiently outside. 10 floors in Snow Tower. I think Jian Wushuang could go all the way to the 10th floor with his power. Wu Tsong smiled faintly. Just then, swoosh, Swoosh! There were two figures that descended before Snow Tower one after another. Wuxia looked over. His pupils contracted when he saw someone visiting. Wuxia, what are you doing here? A fairly unfriendly voice was heard. The one who spoke was a purple-haired elderly who was walking at the front. I'm waiting for someone. Wuxia looked cold. Who are you waiting for? The purple-haired elderly stopped before Wuxia. I got to know someone when I was wandering outside. He's not in Snow Tower, Wuxia answered. Oh, such a coincidence. I happen to know an expert on my way to a mission too. I brought him back to challenge Snow Tower too, the purple-haired elderly said. Wuxia, what do you mean? Wuxia's face grew grave. Nothing. Why are you so angry? We are both golden-dressed deacons. You can bring someone over, but I can't? The purple-haired elderly snorted. I have no time to deal with your nonsense. Wuxia turned around and didn't bother looking at the purple-haired elderly anymore. The purple-haired elderly pouted but kept quiet. Soon Jian Wuxia came out from Snow Tower. The moment he exited Snow Tower, the drunkard at the entrance passed Jian Wuxia a token. Jian Wuxia took over the token and walked towards Wuxia. Jian Wuxia, is everything okay? Wuxia quickly asked. Yeah, Jian Wuxia nodded. How many levels did you pass? Wuxia asked curiously. Chapter 1331. The Last Permission for the Battle. Chapter 1331. The Last Permission for the Battle. Wuxia also looked at Jian Wuxia, waiting for the answer. He was also interested in the man recommended by Jian Wuxia. The 7th level. Jian Wuxia answered. 7th. Lord Wuxia was surprised. He had expected Jian Wuxia to pass all the 10 levels based on his power. But soon he realized that Jian Wuxia didn't make full efforts. Jian Wuxia just intended to pass the test. Wuxia sneered. 7th? Only the minimum standard for joining the Snow Dojo. It seems that the talent you recommend just has a mediocre performance. What about the talent you bring here? Lord Wuxia asked indifferently. Wuxia looked at the silent man standing behind him. Show your capability, Dong Ao. Yes, master. The man nodded and went to the Snow Tower, without a glance at Jian Wuxia. I don't want to waste my time here. Let's go, Jian Wuxia. Lord Wuxia then left with Jian Wuxia. Wuxia sneered and let them go. Who is that man? It seems that you don't like him. Jian Wuxia asked Lord Wuxia. He is Wuxia, another golden deacon. We have been competing with each other for the past few years. What Jian Wuxia had guessed was confirmed. Let's go and meet the chief deacon. Lord Wuxia led Jian Wuxia to an attic and came to a lady in green. Though the lady looked tender, Jian Wuxia could feel with his soul power that she was actually more powerful than Lord Wuxia. Obviously, she was the chief deacon of the Snow Dojo. Deacon Green, this is Jian Wuxia who passed the test of the Snow Tower. I bring him here to apply for permission for him to join the ranked battle of universe gods in the first heaven. Lord Wuxia said directly his intention. You also want permission? Deacon Green frowned. Is there anyone else who also wants permission? Lord Wuxia was surprised. Wuxia has sent messages to me to apply for the permission, Deacon Green said. Why does he want that? Lord Wuxia was angry. Now I will call him to come here to discuss, Deacon Green said. After a while, Wuxia came with the talent Dong Ao. Wuxia and Dong Ao were still indifferent when he met Lord Wuxia and Jian Wuxia. Okay, let's talk and decide who can get permission. Deacon Green analyzed. There will be 3 ranked battles after 3 months. 10 universe gods in each heaven will go to the battles. As for universe gods from the first heaven, 9 of them have been decided, and there is only 1 left. Who can get permission? Of course Jian Wuxia, Lord Wuxia said. Only he can absolutely win in the battle. Don't be so arrogant. How many levels has Jian Wuxia passed in the Snow Tower? Wuxia asked. The 7th. Wuxia sneered. How could he have the privilege to join the battle when he has only passed 7 levels? Guess how many levels Dong Ao passed? 8. And he nearly passed the 9th. So it's obvious that Dong Ao is more suitable. Even Deacon Green was surprised that Dong Ao almost passed 9 levels. After all, it was more difficult in higher levels. Less than 5 universe gods could pass the 9th level, and they would join in the battles. Just testing in the snow tower couldn't prove anything. Okay, shut up, Deacon Green said, to stop them from quarreling. Do you know how important the ranked battle is? The reputation of Snow Dojo would be ruined if we lose again. Deacon Green said emotionally. Her voice was resounding around the palace. And Lord Wutsong and Wu Chao fell silent. Okay, so let the 2 talents battle to decide who permission belongs to. It's a simple method. Do you agree? Both Lord Wutsong and Wu Chao nodded. Jian Wushuang didn't show disapproval. And Dong Ao still glanced at Jian Wushuang indifferently. He thought only a universe god passing 7 levels was worth no attention of his. There was a boundless square in the Snow Dojo, and talents used to gather there to battle. Jian Wushuang and Doing Ao came to the center of the square. Other talents also came here to watch him battle. Among them there was a slender and handsome man named Long Hao. Long Hao, you are the leader of the universe gods of the first heaven. Watch their battle, and decide which one is more suitable to join your team in the battle. Yes, Deacon. Long Hao nodded. Chapter 1332, Jian Wushuang vs. Dong Ao. Chapter 1332, Jian Wushuang vs. Dong Ao. The 2 of you can start now, Master Qing instructed. Jian Wushuang and Dong Ao walked towards the middle of the drill ground. Jian Wushuang, Wutsong spoke. When you go into Snow Tower, you are only required to reach the 7th floor, and you don't need to worry about it. But now, you have to take this seriously. Don't worry, I know, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Jian Wushuang and Dong Ao stood in the middle of the drill ground and faced each other in a short distance. Dong Ao had a frosty look, and he gazed at Jian Wushuang. He lowered his voice and said, You go ahead first. Give me your all. Otherwise, you might not stand a chance. You're pretty confident. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. The Blood Mountain sword appeared in his hand. I'd like to see where your confidence derives from. Jian Wushuang took action straight away. A flowing light suddenly flashed. Then, Jian Wushuang stood before Dong Ao and stroked with Blood Mountain sword. Although the stroke looked like it was performed casually, it felt like it could actually tear the world. The divine power that Jian Wushuang let out was merely the level of a peak universe god in the first heaven. However, through Blood Mountain sword, it was a notch stronger than an ordinary peak universe god in the first heaven. Looking at the attack of the sword light, Dong Ao's gaze turned cold, and he took a step forward. The moment he took a step forward, the saber that he was carrying behind his back was suddenly withdrawn simultaneously. Cling-clang. The saber light was like a wave lapping at Jian Wushuang. There was a cloud of gray mist that soared up from Dong Ao. His image suddenly became very blurry. Dang! 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 The continuous metal clashing noise was heard and Jian Wushuang's figure was forced to move 3 steps back. This strength, you're not weak, huh? Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows. It's a secret skill. The gray mist that covered his body strengthened the explosion of his divine power. Buzz! A fierce blade suddenly raised and Dong Ao's gaze turned cold. The gray mist on his body suddenly increased, and his divine body increased in size too. He looked as though he had turned into a brown bear, and there was a terrifying hostility. Wow! Dong Ao slashed his saber down. A shadow that covered half the sky appeared from nowhere. The shadow contained an imposing power, and the disciples from Snow Dojo were surprised. A rank 2 unique skill. Although it's only a beginner rank 2, it's not too shabby. Some disciples were discussing among themselves. For a peak universe god in the first heaven, to create a rank 2 unique skill, it would definitely stir a commotion elsewhere in other worlds. However, in Snow Dojo where experts gathered, for a universe god in the first heaven, to create a rank 2 unique skill was nothing. There were at least a dozen universe gods in the first heaven in the Snow Dojo, who had created rank 2 unique skill after all. At the same time as Dong Ao wielded his saber, and put his rank 2 unique skill to play, Jian Wushuang swung his sword and performed a Rank 2 unique Skill 2 test wrecker. Bang! There was a loud thud, and the ground suddenly cracked and shattered. Jian Wushuang was pushed back by the impact once again. He wasn't just forced backwards, but actually flew off. Only after a while he regained stability. As expected, you who merely reached the 7th floor of Snow Tower are only at this level of power. Dong Ao stood there with his saber as he spoke in a disdainful manner. By the side, Wu Chao saw and he couldn't help but look at Wu Tsong in disdain and smiled coldly. Wu Tsong, this is the genius who you were talking about earlier? The one who can win victory for Snow Dojo in the ranking battle? Stop joking. The battle has yet to end. Why are you in a hurry? Wu Tsong snorted, but he wasn't panicking at all. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang heard Dong Ao's disdain and taunting words. His pupils contracted as he said, "At first, I wanted to experiment with a few new unique skills on you. But as you said that, let's end the battle straight away." Jian Wushuang didn't plan to continue fooling around with Dong Ao, but took action directly. Swoosh! It was the same situation. A flowing light plundered and appeared before Dong Ao. Then he wielded his sword. That stroke was a simple lift to the air, a simple and casual stroke. Funny, Dong Ao didn't bother with Jian Wushuang. When he saw Jian Wushuang charging towards him, he wanted to raise his saber again. Buzz! The sword light appeared with a faint whistle of the sword. Dong Ao shook and he stunned on the spot. Pust! An arm and a fiery redness flew out. Jian Wushuang stopped behind Dong Ao, and he slowly tucked Blood Mountain sword into its scabbard. Dong Ao finally came back to reality and he suddenly glared. His eyes were filled with terror and rage. He realized that his right arm was chopped off. It was because Jian Wushuang showed mercy. Otherwise, that stroke could totally chop off his head. Impossible. I refuse to accept the result. It is merely because I'm careless and I didn't defend you. Hence, your surprise attack succeeded. Dong Ao bellowed. Jian Wushuang, let's do this again. Again. Jian Wushuang turned around and looked at Dong Ao. In his eyes, there was a flash of disdain. By the side, Wu Tsong chuckled sneeringly. Wu Chao, this is the genius that you brought? This kind of quality? He lost. If Jian Wushuang didn't show mercy, he would be dead by now. And he's shameless enough to ask Jian Wushuang for a rematch? Haha. Wu Chao's face grew grave. Especially when he heard Dong Ao throwing a tantrum. He felt even more embarrassed. Idiot, get down! Wu Chao shouted. I refuse. Dong Ao stared at Jian Wushuang. He was really unwilling to accept the outcome. He thought Jian Wushuang had merely defeated him by a surprise attack, because he was not paying attention. However, no matter how unhappy he was with the result, he had lost. No one pitied him. Jian Wushuang wouldn't do a rematch with him. He had no choice but to leave. Long Hao, you watched the two battles. Do you have a decision? Master Qing looked at Long Hao. Yes. Long Hao nodded and smiled. The battle earlier, Jian Wushuang was originally at disadvantage. However, he could defeat Dong Ao directly in the end, because he performed a consciousness attack. It was a very fierce consciousness attack. Even Dong Ao, who was a peak universe god in the first heaven, couldn't resist. Such an impressive consciousness attack is rare to come by. Long Hao was telling the truth. A consciousness attack wasn't something rated. Most cultivators could perform the trick, but to be able to perform didn't mean one was an expert at it. In the eternal chaotic world, only very few people specialized in consciousness attacks or other similar magic tricks. Only those who were experts in it could perform such fierce consciousness attacks. And Jian Wushuang was obviously one of them. Chapter 1333. The Ranked Battle Began. Chapter 1333. The Ranked Battle Began. None of the 9 universe gods in the first heaven, including me, is good at conscious attacks, and Jian Wushuang, whether powerful or not, can help us a lot. Long Hao said. Then Jian Wushuang, you should make a full preparation in the next 3 months, and join in the ranked battle with Long Hao. Don't lose the battle. Deacon Green said. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Jian Wushuang, We can communicate frequently together to enhance mutual understanding, so that you can cooperate well in the battle. Long Hao said to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang also nodded. Other talents went back, when they knew who the last permission for the battle belonged to. And Wu Chao left with Dong Ao disappointedly. Jian Wushuang and Lord Wutsong also went back. Jian Wushuang, you always keep a low profile about your power. Lord Wutsong said. I won't stay in the snow dojo for too long, and I just have to get what I want. It is unnecessary for me to display what I really have. Jian Wushuang shook his head. That's good, but please make full efforts in the battle. After all, Universe Gods in the Snow Dojo still lag behind those in the Universe God Palace. If you don't give a hand, we will definitely lose, Lord Wutsong said embarrassedly. Yes, I know how to manage it. Good. And Lord Wutsong didn't continue. In the next 3 months, Jian Wushuang attended the training with other battle participants and exchanged ideas with them. When someone invited him to battle together, he seldom refused, but he never showed his true power. He had always kept a low profile in the Snow Dojo. One of the reasons was that he didn't want leaders in the Snow Dojo to know his power and keep him in the dojo. 3 months soon passed and the ranked battle began. The battle between the Snow Dojo and the Universe God Palace, the two well-known genius concentration camps, was certainly attractive. The boundless battlefield was crowded with numerous talents. Many privileged and powerful families and tribes had all come here to watch the battle. There were 2 thrones at the grandstand of the battlefield, on which 2 gods Saturday. One of them was an elderly god with a red robe and red hair. He was calm but awesome, as if he could burn everything in the heaven. The other one was with short black hair and a cool face, with eyes gleaming with black light. Whoever sat beside him felt as if he was also in the middle of a black hole. So horrible. So awesome they are. Even Jian Wushuang was shocked by their presence. Their aura is much stronger than the universe gods. So I guess they have already surpassed the level of universe gods. Jian Wushuang said quietly. Exactly, King of Venomous Worms in Jian Wushuang's body said. They have already surpassed the level of universe gods and reached a brand new level, which belongs to the eternal chaotic world. They are the real experts in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, though they are still not the top ones and far less powerful than King Luozhen and the creator of the lineage of Star. But they are still powerful enough to kill me easily. Jian Wushuang said with self-mockery. Jian Wushuang. Lord Wutsong pointed at the elderly man with the strong aura like black holes and said, he is master of Silence Gloriette, and only he knows the route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Jian Wushuang nodded. On the grandstand, Master of Silence Gloriette was chatting with the red-haired elderly. I think it is no longer necessary to hold the ranked battle if you guys lose again this time. We have won 5 times consecutively, and you guys are too weak to be opponents, the red-haired elderly said indifferently. Master of Silence Gloriette snorted. Nonsense. We will be the winners this time. You seem confident, the red-haired elderly smiled. Of course. But you were also confident last time. But your Snow Dojo won nothing in the last 3 rounds. The taunt from the red-haired elderly was obvious. Master of Silence Gloriette got angry. If we don't win this time, I will kill all the golden deacons. And he glanced at Deacon Green on his side. Go and bring all the golden deacons here. Yes, my majesty. Deacon Green followed his order. Jian Wushuang, Master of Silence Gloriette asks us to go there. So just follow Long Hao and make a good preparation. Lord Wutsong said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. The highly anticipated ranked battle was around the corner. The first round of the battle was between the most powerful talents, universe gods of the third heaven. 10 participants from each team all went to the center of the battlefield. There was a huge wormhole in the center. Begin. As Master of Silence Gloriette announced the battle starting, the universe gods of the third heaven from both the Snow Dojo and Universe God Palace all went into the wormhole. Chapter 1334. 1 win and 1 defeat. Chapter 1334. one win and one defeat. When those universe god in the third heaven entered the wormhole, Virum, in the void in the middle of the training field, there was a huge mirror image that appeared in the air. The mirror image contained countless frames that showed every corner of the mountain rock world where the ranking battle would take place. No matter where the battle was going to take place in Mountain Rock World, they would be able to watch clearly through the mirror image. It's starting. Many experts in the training field were getting excited. Jian Wushuang, too, lifted his head to watch the mirror image. He noticed that after the universe gods in the third heaven from both parties entered the wormhole, they were scattered in various corners in Mountain Rock World. The rule of the ranking battle was simple, which was for the two parties to fight against each other in Mountain Rock World. Because the Mountain Rock World itself was a Gnosis treasure, even if one were to be killed within Mountain Rock World, he wouldn't be dead, but only be sent out from Mountain Rock World. Hence, the geniuses from both parties could fight without inhibition. They could fight until all the geniuses from the opposite party were eliminated. Besides, Mountain Rock World was a spacious world. With only 20 geniuses fighting in it, it would require a few days' time to determine the victory and defeat. However, the geniuses from both parties would choose a meeting place ahead of time, so that they could gather all scattered geniuses together and kill the geniuses from the other party, who was alone. In turn, they would gain an advantageous position. In the image, Jian Wushuang saw the geniuses in the third heaven from both parties were taking action. Listen up. When the third ranking battle begins after we enter Mountain Rock World, no matter where you are, you must rush to the Bloodfire Pinnacle straightaway with the fastest speed. Understand? Long Hao pointed at a lofty pinnacle in the image and exhorted. Understood. The surrounding universe gods in the first heaven nodded simultaneously. Bloodfire Pinnacle? Jian Wushuang memorized it. At the beginning, the geniuses were scattered further away in Mountain Rock World, and it was rather calm. However, the tranquility was only sustained for a while until the fight began. The geniuses from both parties started fighting without hesitation the moment they met. Look, it's Senior Chen Feng. He killed an enemy all by himself. The one he killed from Universe God Palace is quite famous, but he couldn't even run away from Senior Chen Feng. He lives up to his reputation as the strongest among universe gods in the third heaven in Snow Dojo. He is really impressive. Jian Wushuang stayed among the geniuses from Snow Dojo as he listened to the discussion and exclamation of the surrounding geniuses. Chen Feng. Jian Wushuang looked at another image. In the image, Chen Feng killed and eliminated a universe god in the third heaven from Universe God Palace. It was the first time Jian Wushuang saw universe gods in the third heaven fight, and they were all real geniuses. Hence, he was all excited too. Lord Wutsong said that Snow Dojo has a high chance of winning in the ranking battle amongst universe gods in the third heaven. The reason it was highly likely was because of Chen Feng. He seemed to be the top person amongst the universe gods in the third heaven in Snow Dojo. Jian Wushuang complimented. Then, the fight between the two parties became even more ferocious. Jian Wushuang paid full attention as he watched. The time flew past. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The ranking battle was finally over. Won! We won! Haha, 3 ranking battles and we Snow Dojo took first. The disciples from Snow Dojo were extremely happy. The final winner for the first ranking battle was Snow Dojo. Although it was rather complicated and tough, Snow Dojo won in the end. Of course, Jian Wushuang could tell that they won the ranking battle most likely because of Chen Feng. He was too powerful. In the final battle, he held back 2 major universe gods in the third heaven from Universe God Palace. The Master of Silence Gloriette revealed a hearty smile on the stand. Luckily there wasn't any incidents in the first ranking battle. Chen Feng from your Snow Dojo is really powerful. No one from my Universe God Palace could be evenly matched with him. It's well within expectation that you would win this battle. The red-haired elderly smiled faintly. He looked like he was unconcerned. Before the ranking battle started, both Snow Dojo and Universe God Palace gathered news silently. Hence, both parties were well informed. Universe God Palace knew long ago that they didn't have a high chance of winning for the first ranking battle. Hence, the red-haired elderly naturally didn't care. However, your Snow Dojo could only do well in the first ranking battle. For the following second and third ranking battle, I reckon you wouldn't stand a chance. The red-haired elderly smiled as he added. Is that so? We shall see. The Master of Silence Gloriette snorted. Soon after the first ranking battle ended, the second ranking battle started. The second ranking battle was among the universe gods in the second heaven. Similar to the first battle, 10 universe gods in the second heaven from both parties entered into Mountain Rock World directly and started fighting against each other. Just as the red-haired elderly had predicted, because of Chun Feng's existence in the first ranking battle, the geniuses from Universe God Palace lost in the end, even though they were indomitable. However, in the second ranking battle, none of the 10 representatives from Snow Dojo was an expert like Chun Feng. On the contrary, there were 3 among the representatives from Universe God Palace who possessed the power of a universe god in the third heaven. Their overall power was far stronger than Snow Dojo. Hence, for that round of ranking battle, from the beginning till the end, the situation was one-sided. It only took 2 days for the battle to end, and there was no space for struggle either. When the ranking battle ended, Universe God Palace had 8 universe gods left standing. Only 2 were eliminated. Rubbish. A bunch of rubbish. On the stand, there was rage burning in the Master of Silence Gloriette's eyes. His rage spilled over to a group of golden-dressed deacons behind him. The golden-dressed deacons, including Wu Song, were all trembling in fear. They knew that they lost the second ranking battle, and both parties were tied. So they definitely couldn't lose the third ranking battle. The Master of Silence Gloriette would definitely be in a violent rage if they were to lose. By then, all of them would be suffering. Luckily, in the final battle there's Jian Wushuang. We shouldn't lose, Wu Song mumbled to comfort himself. He had seen Jian Wushuang's power with his own eyes. Hence, he was naturally confident in Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1335, The Poor Confused Guy. Chapter 1335, The Poor Confused Guy. The last round of the battle, also the most important one, was the battle between the universe gods in the first heaven. All eyes were on the participants from both teams. Among them there was Jian Wushuang, who deliberately controlled his aura to avoid attention. Only Lord Wu Song and Dong Ao were looking at him. Dong Ao stared at Jian Wushuang angrily, tightly holding his hands. He could accept the fact that he was defeated by Jian Wushuang. He still believed that he was defeated because of his carelessness over Jian Wushuang's conscious attack. I am now watching how you will be defeated in the battle, Dong Ao murmured with hatred brewing in his mind. At the center of the battlefield, 20 talents from the 2 teams stood side by side. See you again, Long Hao. The voice came from the young man in the black robe. He was the genius in Universe God Palace. Lu Qing. Long Hao was surprised. Are you going to invite the insult this time? The young man in black said to Long Hao. Since last ranked battle Long Hao was defeated. That was the story 10,000 years ago. This time, I will win. Long Hao said. Okay, I will wait and see, Lu Qing snorted. Round 3 starts. The red-haired elderly announced. Go! Talents from the 2 team went through the wormhole and entered into the Mountain Rock World without any hesitation. The third round had now started. Bang! Jian Wushuang went into a forest. The forest was luxuriant and vibrant. As he came here, Jian Wushuang started to look around. Long Hao told me to go to the Bloodfire Pinnacle immediately after arriving at the Mountain Rock World. But, where is the Bloodfire Pinnacle? Jian Wushuang frowned. And he realized he could only remember fragmented parts in the Mountain Rock World when he watched the precious 2 rounds. But he couldn't connect them together, and he now had no idea of routes in this Mountain Rock World. He didn't even know his own location. But I feel that the Bloodfire Pinnacle is in this direction. And Jian Wushuang followed his intuition. In the battlefield, everyone was watching the third round. A participant had already met his opponent and started to fight. And soon a result was concluded. One talent from the Snow Dojo was already out. Well, unfortunately, he met Lu Qing and didn't even have a chance to escape. In terms of overall strength, participants from the Snow Dojo were weaker than those from the Universe God Palace. And now with one out, the Snow Dojo was in a harder situation. Talents signed for the unfortunate Snow Dojo. Master of Silence Gloriette seemed worried. After a day, the Snow Dojo almost lost its member. But at the crucial moment Long Hao came here to kill 2 rivals from the Universe God Palace. Or 4 talents from the Snow Dojo would die. But 2 participants from the Snow Dojo were severely injured, though they didn't die. Spectators were holding a heated discussion of the battle. Until now, 2 talents from each team were out, and 2 from the Snow Dojo were severely injured. The Snow Dojo lagged behind. Snow Dojo must come up with a solution, or it will be doomed to fail. But they cooperate well with each other. All talents from the Snow Dojo are now coming toward the Bloodfire Pinnacle, so that they can fight together against their opponents who were alone. There is still hope. Ha ha ha, look here. Who is that guy carrying a sword? Is he from the Snow Dojo? What is he doing? Someone found Jian Wushuang and laughed. And others all started to pay attention to him. It looked funny. Why does he go to the Dark Sea when others were fighting fiercely? The Dark Sea is the margin of the mountain rock world. Is he hiding there? Haha, poor guy, he looks confused. Everyone was laughing. Talents from the Universe God Palace laughed recklessly. But those from the Universe God Palace looked worried and ashamed. Why did Jian Wushuang go to the Dark Sea when others were fighting fiercely? What is happening? Master of Silence Gloriette tightly clenched his hands and looked horribly angry. All Golden Deacon behind him were also surprised. Especially Lord Wuxia. The poor confused guy was exactly like Jian Wushuang. What the hell is he doing? Lord Wuxia got angry, but after a while he analyzed that maybe Jian Wushuang had lost his way and didn't know the direction of the Bloodfire Pinnacle. Suddenly, something occurred to Lord Wuxia. Oh my god! He just entered into the Snow Dojo and was unfamiliar with Mountain Rock World. And I forgot to give him a map. At this moment, Master of Silence Gloriette stared at Lord Wuxia angrily. I hear that it's you that recommend the guy in the Dark Sea into the Snow Dojo, right? Master of Silence Gloriette asked. If we lose this time, I will kill you, Master of Silence Gloriette told Lord Wuxia. Chapter 1336 Finally made it. Chapter 1336 Finally made it. Humph, you'd better be praying that we Snow Dojo will win this ranking battle. Otherwise, I will tear off your skin. Wuxia heard the Master of Silence Gloriette's raging voice, and he trembled. He wore an anguished look as he thought. Jian Wushuang, you are getting me into trouble. Next to Wuxia was Wu Chao, who was always competing with him. He laughed mischievously. Humph, didn't you want Jian Wushuang to join the battle back then? Now, I shall see how you'd take care of this. Among the people in the training field, Dong Ao looked extremely sullen and said, Jian Wushuang, if you were to continue to lose, I shall see how you are going to die when the ranking battle ends. Jian Wushuang had already arrived at the Dark Sea, and he noticed that something wasn't right. This sea seems to be the border of Mountain Rock World? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Although he wasn't familiar with Mountain Rock World, when he was watching the 2 ranking battles earlier, he saw the sea from the images. The geniuses from both parties never came here in every battle. I think I took the wrong way. Jian Wushuang clicked his tongue and turned around to walk back. I hope I can reach it in time. Jian Wushuang felt helpless too. In Mountain Rock World, both parties were having a ferocious fight. However, the winning balance was tipping over Universe God Palace all the time. Sigh, Snow Dojo is going to lose. Even Long Hao is injured. He is quite badly injured, and it'll be difficult for him to recover. There seems to be no struggle point for Snow Dojo. Look, Universe God Palace is approaching. The final battle is going to begin. Before everyone's gaze, in one of the images, there were 7 representatives from Universe God Palace who were alive. They were meeting up with Snow Dojo's representatives. There were only 5 representatives from Snow Dojo who had gathered there. The other 4 were eliminated, while Jian Wushuang had yet to reach there. Among the 5 representatives, 3 were severely injured. That included Long Hao, who was the strongest of all. On the other hand, Universe God Palace maintained their team pretty well. There were still 7 of them left. Their power was too vastly different. Don't give up. We can hold them back by using a strong formation. Until Long Hao recovers completely, we still have a chance. The few geniuses from Snow Dojo kept pressing, even though they were at such a disadvantage. They didn't intend to give up. Among the 5 geniuses, there was one who was an expert in formation. He immediately set up a formation, and they continued to fight against the representative from Universe God Palace, with the aid of power derived from the formation. But the sight looked just like they were fighting desperately like a cornered wild beast. Haha, Long Hao, you still don't want to give up at such state. A burst of taunting laughter was heard from outside the formation. The one who spoke was Lu Qing from Universe God Palace. From the previous ranking battle, you were defeated by me. This time, you will be heavily defeated. You don't stand a chance. The few geniuses from Universe God Palace were beaming with joy. Under Lu Qing's lead, they suppressed the formation, and it was going to be routed soon. Once the formation was routed, the remaining geniuses would fight face to face. Then Snow Dojo would definitely be trounced. Just then, there was a figure that appeared in the sky. Oh, the lost guy is finally on the battlefield. Haha, he's finally here. But he's too late. The die is cast. Snow Dojo doesn't stand a chance. Even if the little guy came here in time, it wouldn't be much help to Snow Dojo. Including this session of ranking battle that Universe God Palace won, we are in a winning streak of 6 battles. TSK. Everyone on the training field complimented. Jian Wushuang, who appeared at the border of the battlefield in the image, saw the situation of the battlefield. Luckily, although I'm a little late, I got here in time. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and Blood Mountain Sword immediately appeared in his hand. He was clear with the situation of the battlefield before his eyes. He knew that the geniuses from Snow Dojo couldn't hold on any longer. At such a crucial moment, he had to take action. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang moved towards the battlefield before him like a flowing light. The geniuses from both parties noticed his arrival that instant as well. It's Jian Wushuang. It's him. He only came to meet us now. The few geniuses from Snow Dojo was burning with rage. They didn't see Jian Wushuang during the meeting at Bloodfire Pinnacle earlier, and they thought Jian Wushuang was killed and eliminated by the people from Universe God Palace on his way there. But then they realized that Jian Wushuang was still surviving in Mountain Rock World. If he wasn't eliminated, why didn't he meet us earlier? Forget it. Better late than never. Long Hao sighed and shouted. Quick, Jian Wushuang, come into the formation. Work together to resist Universe God Palace's attack. Wait till I recover to my peak. We still stand a chance. Jian Wushuang, hurry up. The other geniuses from Snow Dojo shouted too. When Jian Wushuang heard Long Hao shouting, his pupils contracted and he quickly thought. The very next moment, he didn't reply to Long Hao and the rest, nor did he enter the formation. He wielded the Blood Mountain Sword and charged towards the 7 geniuses from Universe God Palace. That sight astonished Long Hao and the rest. On the training field outside Mountain Rock World, everyone saw Jian Wushuang's movement, and they were all shocked. Then it was followed by a roar of laughter. This boy is really silly, huh? According to the situation now, if he were to enter the formation to resist the attack together as Long Hao said, they might really stand a chance. Who knew that the guy would charge towards the geniuses from Universe God Palace alone? He was already lost before, to the point where he got to the Dark Sea. Now that he finally made it in time to the final battle, he looks even more lost. Many spectators were entertained with Jian Wushuang's movement. On the stand, the Master of Silence Gloriette's face grew grave. An unusually terrifying aura was spiraling around him, and he was still holding it back before it exploded entirely. The other experts from Snow Dojo looked extremely embarrassed too. On the battlefield in Mountain Rock World, those geniuses from Universe God Palace saw Jian Wushuang charge towards them alone. The 7 geniuses found it strange too. Who knew there would be a fish out of the net? Who the hell is this? Why haven't I seen him before? Who cares? If he has a death wish, grant it to him. Kill him. The 7 geniuses from Universe God Palace locked into their target, Jian Wushuang. Just as they prepared to take action, Jian Wushuang, who came before them, suddenly wielded his sword. Chapter 1337. Jian Wushuang's divine power exploded. Chapter 1337. Jian Wushuang's divine power exploded. Bang! With a flash of light, Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was like a brisk autumn wind flying across the heavens, without any trail. The 7 rivals who had been ready to kill Jian Wushuang were all shocked by his swordsmanship. As the autumn wind dissipated, Jian Wushuang's figure appeared behind the 7 talents from the Universe God Palace. His Blood Mountain sword was still roaring. The advanced rank 2 unique skill, the autumn wind swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang acquired this swordsmanship on his way to the Snow Dojo. It was similar to the chant of disturbance that he had created, but was actually faster and more powerful. Furthermore, the autumn wind swordsmanship could be used to attack a group of rivals. Boom, 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 boom. There were 6 cracking sounds. Those cracking sounds suggested the split of token. 6 of the 7 talents felt shocked when they felt the split of their tokens, soon after which they were forced out of the Mountain Rock world. 6 geniuses were out of the game. Still one. Jian Wushuang turned around and saw who was still there. It's a consciousness attack. How powerful it is. Lu Qing, who was the only one left, felt nervous and sweaty and licked his lips. He was attacked by Jian Wushuang's consciousness attack, but fortunately he defended himself at the crucial moment. And the talents, including Long Hao at the other side of the battlefield, were shocked. Jian Wushuang had defeated 6 rivals with only 1 swordsmanship. You are resilient enough to survive under my attack. Jian Wushuang smiled to Lu Qing. Who are you? Lu Qing stared at Jian Wushuang. I know all the powerful talents in the Snow Dojo, but I have never known someone with such a powerful consciousness attack. I joined the Snow Dojo just recently. Certainly you don't know me. Jian Wushuang laughed. You quit by yourself, or did you let me force you out? Nonsense. Don't imagine you can defeat me. Lu Qing gritted his teeth and clung to his axe, thinking that he could defeat Jian Wushuang as long as he was prepared. He rushed to Jian Wushuang like a furious giant monster. In response, Jian Wushuang also strode. As he strode, Jian Wushuang wielded his sword, and his divine power exploded. Lu Qing wielded his axe and exercised his most powerful unique skills against Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword. A big collision. Boom! Lu Qing felt his body was shaking, and he was shocked. As he realized what had happened, his token split, and he was forced out. Again, Jian Wushuang just used a simple attack. He didn't even have to use the soul attack. After defeating Lu Qing, Jian Wushuang took back his sword and went to Long Hao. Long Hao and his teammates were shocked. Jian Wushuang smiled. We have won, right? They won. The Snow Dojo won. According to the rules of the ranked battle, one party lost the game when all participants were forced out of the game. So the Universe God Palace lost the battle. Spectators outside the Mountain Rock world were also speechless. They were stunned by Jian Wushuang. All eyes were on the hero carrying a long sword, the one they had called the poor confused guy. They had laughed at Jian Wushuang when he went to a group of rivals alone, but now, they had no reason to laugh at him. Jian Wushuang defeated 6 talents with only 1 sword. And with another, he defeated Lu Qing, the most excellent candidate among the universe gods in the first heaven from the Universe God Palace. How powerful Jian Wushuang was. Excellent. Hero. Good job. It was Master of Silence Gloriette who cheered happily. Master of Silence Gloriette stood up cheerfully. But the red fire elderly beside him was totally the opposite. We lose. It was unexpected for him. He had predicted that the Universe God Palace could absolutely win this time, including the third round of the battle. But they had lost. It is because of him. The Red Fire elderly looked at Jian Wushuang. Who is that young talent? Why didn't we ever hear about him before? The Red Fire elderly congratulated Master of Silence Gloriette. Finally you win. Master of Silence Gloriette looked complacent. I told you that we would win. Come on, Red Fire elderly said. You won because you enrolled an excellent member, a true genius. Without him, you had no chance to win. I guess he stayed in the Snow Dojo for less than 1 year. The Universe God Palace collected information on the Snow Dojo once a year. So the Red Fire elderly guessed Jian Wushuang was the new member. Haha, you are right. He joined our dojo 3 months ago. Master of Silence Gloriette answered. Chapter 1338, Triumph in Ranking Battle. Chapter 1338, Triumph in Ranking Battle. Less than 3 months. No wonder. The red-haired elderly suddenly understood and sighed. A genius like that is hard to come by. It's a pity that Snow Dojo got their hands on him first. The Master of Silence Gloriette, your Snow Dojo is lucky this time. For the next ranking battle, you won't be so lucky. The red-haired elderly said. Then his figure suddenly dissolved into thin air. Humph, with such a genius, it'd still be Snow Dojo who wins the next ranking battle. The Master of Silence Gloriette replied. After the red-haired elderly left, the Master of Silence Gloriette looked at those golden-dressed deacons. Wu Tsang, you're a man of vision. Thank you, Master. Wu Tsang showed a smile and he felt relief. The Master of Silence Gloriette said that he would tear his skin off earlier. Luckily, Jian Wushuang managed to reach them in time, and pulled off impressive tricks. His one lift helped Snow Dojo to win the victory for the ranking battle. Oh yeah, what's the man's name? How did you come across him? The Master of Silence Gloriette asked casually. He looked like he was in a good mood. His name is Jian Wushuang. I met him when I wandered in the outside world. He is definitely the strongest genius I have ever seen. Wu Tsang replied. Of course, Jian Wushuang intentionally reminded Wu Tsang, so he didn't reveal to the Master of Silence Gloriette that Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. A universe god in the first heaven, who has such impressive consciousness, attack skill, and such terrifying divine power. He is really out of the ordinary. The Master of Silence Gloriette nodded as he complimented. Previously, when Jian Wushuang took action in Mountain Rock World, no one else had seen it clearer than him. Such a genius, if we Snow Dojo nurture him properly, his achievement definitely wouldn't be any weaker than Chen Feng. Maybe even stronger. The Master of Silence Gloriette smiled. Master Jian Wushuang I'm afraid he didn't intend to stay in Snow Dojo, Wu Tsang said. Oh, why? The Master of Silence Gloriette creased his eyebrows and asked. Wu Tsang didn't hide anything, briefly telling the Master of Silence Gloriette the ins and outs of the story. Is that so? Jian Wushuang wanted to get the travel route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries from me, and that's why he won the ranking battle for me? The Master of Silence Gloriette nodded. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries. I once stayed for a while in one of the sanctuaries. It is a place that people yearn for. Jian Wushuang has such talent. It is very normal that he wants to go to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. It's such a pity. The Master of Silence Gloriette sighed in disappointment. For a genius like Jian Wushuang, he of course wanted for Jian Wushuang to stay in Snow Dojo if possible. However, Wu Tsang said that he already invited him once and advised him. However, Jian Wushuang had made up his mind. Master. Wu Chao among the golden-dressed deacons stood up and said, if Jian Wushuang only won a ranking battle for Snow Dojo, and he is going to leave right after that, there's no need for us to give him the quota to enter Tian Yuan Mystery Land. We could totally give it to the other geniuses in Snow Dojo. Wu Tsang's face suddenly grew grave. The main goal of Jian Wushuang was of course for the travel route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. However, Tian Yuan Mystery Land was a great chance to Hence, it'd be great if he could obtain that chance. Then, Wu Chao wanted to pass the quota that originally belonged to Jian Wushuang to other people. The quota to enter Tianyuna Mystery Land should still be for him. The Master of Silence Gloriette replied. He won the ranking battle on behalf of Snow Dojo. Supposedly, he should get some benefit. It's only a quota for Tianyuan Mystery Land. We at Snow Dojo are not that stingy. As the Master of Silence Gloriette had ordered it, Wu Chao naturally didn't dare to go against him. Qing, you take care of the rest of the matter, the Master of Silence Gloriette instructed. Certainly, the first deacon Master Qing nodded. I shall return first. Wu Tsang, bring that man to see me later. Then, the Master of Silence Gloriette vanished into thin air on the stand. The ranking battle had ended. The experts on the training field slowly dispersed as the result was out. The people in Mountain Rock World came out from the middle of the training field as well. Many geniuses from Universe God Palace gathered, and they looked embarrassed. Their gazes were fixed on a figure on the opposite side. Jian Wushuang. It's him. He defeated all 7 of our geniuses at once. Even Lu Qing couldn't resist his stroke. Jian Wushuang, I wonder where he popped out from. The geniuses from Universe God Palace discussed among themselves. Before the ranking battle begun, they would pay closer attention to geniuses from their opponent. For instance, their top representative, Long Hao, was someone they focused on. However, Jian Wushuang, he joined Snow Dojo for about 3 months' time, and he was extremely low profile during those 3 months. No one knew his true power in Snow Dojo, so Universe God Palace naturally wouldn't know either. They never expected that the scariest genius in Snow Dojo wasn't Long Hao but this person named Jian Wushuang. He's too strong. Lu Qing stood there and watched Jian Wushuang too. He was upset. He remembered clearly how Jian Wushuang killed him with one stroke in Mountain Rock World. He thought Jian Wushuang was only good with consciousness attacks, but he never expected his divine power explosion would be that terrifying too. He wasn't defeated unjustly. Their difference was too vast. As for the geniuses from Snow Dojo, they looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. They clearly knew that they would have lost the ranking battle if it wasn't because of Jian Wushuang. Dong Ao was among the crowd too, but then Dong Ao was well-behaved, and he even didn't have the courage to look at Jian Wushuang's eyes. Previously, he thought Jian Wushuang defeated him by a fluke. However, after the ranking battle he finally understood. He didn't win by a fluke. Jian Wushuang was much stronger than him. Jian Wushuang obviously didn't put in any effort during the fight 3 months ago. Swoosh! A figure appeared next to Jian Wushuang. It was Wu Tsang. Jian Wushuang, I talked to the Master of Silence Gloriette. The Master of Silence Gloriette wants me to bring you to see him, Wu Tsang said. Oh! Jian Wushuang was delighted. He didn't bother with the people around him, but left with Wu Tsang to see the Master of Silence Gloriette. In Snow Dojo, there was a palace that was entirely black. All the decorations and embellishments in the palace were black too. Wu Tsang and Jian Wushuang walked into the black palace. Master, I brought Jian Wushuang, Wu Tsang said politely. You may go now. The Master of Silence Gloriette, who was seated on the throne in the palace, waved. Wu Tsang left immediately. In the Black Palace, there were only Jian Wushuang, and the Master of Silence Gloriette left. Jian Wushuang, greet the Master of Silence Gloriette. Jian Wushuang bowed politely in response. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.